Hey guys, thanks for joining us here on our weekly live stream here at Salty Ginger Talk. Appreciate you guys joining us. We are very happy to have a guest with us tonight. Her name is Monica Ricci. She was actually on the podcast. I can't remember if we've aired her episode or not, but we've already recorded her interview. She is an awesome lady. She's got an awesome story, but tonight we're not going to get into her story because we do that at length on her episode of our podcast. But we are going to talk to her tonight about relationships and reinvention and some of the things that she's learned. She's got a very interesting life, which you'll hear in her episode. But we're going to talk about some of those things tonight. So let's bring her on now. Hey, there she is. Hi, Monica.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, how you been?
Doing awesome, man.
I have a question and a comment before we get started, both semi-personal. The question is, did you get a chance to try that ice cream?
Yes.
Did I lie?
No, you didn't lie. It was the peanut butter chocolate and it was the Tillamook and it was the best peanut butter chocolate ever.
I don't know what to do different, but for the listeners, when Monica and I were recording her episode, she happened to be in Tillamook, Oregon, and I'm from Portland, Oregon. And anyone that's watching that's ever had Tillamook ice cream knows what I'm about to say is the gospel truth. Tillamook's chocolate peanut butter ice cream is the best version of chocolate peanut butter ice cream that exists on the planet. Her, I can't remember. Did you remarry Monica, or are you dating?
Yeah, we're not married yet.
That's what I thought. You were still, yeah. So you've got a steady guy, and he's a huge chocolate peanut butter fan. And so I made the recommendation. And then their second best ice cream is vanilla bean, which Monica loves. So I felt very useful that night.
It was amazing that you honed in somehow on our two favorite ice creams out of nowhere. That was wild. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hey, look, when it comes to ice cream, I'm an expert. I don't consider myself an expert at many things. Ice cream is one of them. I'll tell you that right now. Oh, and then secondly, Monica and I had a little email exchange just to prepare for the live stream today. And in her email back to me, she said, "Hey, Joe, where are you going with that gun in your hand?" I have to tell you. So first off, if you don't know that that's a line from one of the best Jimi Hendrix songs ever, shame on you for not knowing that song. And most people don't, because I can't tell you how many times in my life from about the time, I think I heard that song when I was, 12, 13 years old. And anytime someone said, "Hey, Joe," after that, I said, "Where am I going with that gun in my hand?" And I got all these blank stares from people. Like, I was so disappointed that people
Isn't
didn't.
that wild that
Yes.
I picked that and that has such significance for you? It's like you picking the ice cream. I mean, it's like we're kindred spirits or something.
Totally. You said bonus points if you know that line. I was like, I'm a little bit insulted. You think I wouldn't know that line, but
I figured we're both Gen X. I figured you did.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. We don't care about nothing, but music's kind of important to us, right?
Super duper. We could talk about that the entire time today, honestly.
Yes, we could. It's funny because I thought about that when I saw your email. So, we did your episode and talked kind of at length about you and just kind of your experiences and et cetera, et cetera. I was hoping to use your presence and your experiences here. I want to talk about relationships for a while we're on here tonight, because there is this, at least from my perspective, and I'd love to hear yours on this, there is this like vitriol that seems to exist from men towards women and women towards men. And I don't understand it. Now, look, you've known me long enough to know I'm not that smart, so I'll cop to that right up front. However, I don't think it's that hard. Like, I've been with my wife for 33 years, and I know you've had several relationships that have had a lot of value in your life with people of the opposite sex. And like, my favorite thing about my wife is that she's a chick. Like, that's literally my favorite thing about her. Like, she's my favorite chick. You know what I mean? And I don't understand what's going on. One, do you agree with that? And two, do you have any idea why it's happening?
I do agree with that. I don't know why it's happening. I think the internet has something to do with it. When everybody gets a microphone and an amplifier, you're going to hear a lot of stuff that you might not have heard before, potentially. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. But what I will say is that I am not immune to that. I have myself going down those rabbit holes in the past and feeling more righteous about it. But what I recognize is that that's not right and it's not helpful if I want to create a life that includes a healthy, happy, fulfilling relationship. And one of the things that you said that I love is I'm going to grab a pen and a piece of paper or index, because I know that you're going to say stuff and I'm going to forget what it is. And I'm going to want to come back to it and have no way to access it. So you said the best thing I like about my wife is that she's a chick. One of the things I think that is driving this war, but gender wars, between us is this ongoing conversation of, are we the same? Are we more the same, or are we more different? Because both things are true. And then that might be a good place to start, because we are very the same because we're human, but we're also very different because we're male and female. And not one of those is correct. They're both correct. And I think it can get really tangled up. And the thing that you said about your wife being a chick is, I see and have seen both men and women complaining about the very thing that makes their spouse a man or a woman. Right? So let's take it out of spousal and human terms, and let's say, let's go to dogs. Dogs are always a good thing to go to. Everyone knows dogs. So this
is a delicate segue, Monica. Be careful.
Oh, is it? Okay. Are we into Harry Met Sally? Is someone in this scenario a dog?
Exactly. I'm joking around. You know me. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
If the audience doesn't like it, fuck them.
Whatever. By the way, I don't know. Can I see comments, YouTube comments as they come through? Because I don't know if I can.
So James will feed them to us so our producer's monitoring the YouTube comments, but they'll come through see the private chat on the right. Make sure that private chat is open and we'll see any comments from there.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, James.
Speaking of which, that's a great segue. Hold your thought on switching to dogs. If you want, if you got a comment, if you got a question, if you want us to talk about a particular thing or subject, or you want to weigh in on the conversation, throw the comment on the live stream on YouTube. Our producer will get it to Monica and I, and we can certainly, we'll read it. If you want us to respond, we'll respond, but we'd love to hear from you guys on your thoughts. What we're talking about right now is why there seems to be this vitriol between men and women, going both ways. This is agnostic. This is not gender specific. Men seem to be really anti-women in a lot of instances. Women seem to be really anti-men in a lot of instances. Monica's going to transition to kind of give her thoughts on this, but it's taking it, I think, probably to try to take some of the emotion out of the conversation, a little different direction. I'm done talking. Sorry for interrupting, Monica.
No worries. So imagine if I said to you, Joe, I really want to get a dog, but when I get the dog, all I do is complain to you that the dog needs to be fed, it needs to be walked, and it barks and it sheds and it just lays around all the time and it jumps up at the first squirrel. And I was just constantly complaining to you about this dog. You might say to me, you did say you wanted a dog. Like, that's what I see. Men complaining about the very things that make us women, and women complaining about the very things that make their husbands or spouses or partners men. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not immune. What I have learned though, is I have learned to stop myself when I get aggravated with something that is a man thing, to go, I did say I wanted a man, right? It's the man that I wanted. Okay, just checking with myself. Because when a man is singularly minded and he's focused on a project and he's like laser beamed in, and he doesn't hear what you say because you're always talking, he's a man. Like, That's why I love him, because he's a man. I just have to navigate his manness, and our men need to navigate our womanness a little bit more gently and softly and with compassion, and understand that if you want your wife to be more like a man, you should probably get a dude. And vice versa.
I think that's right. So I totally agree with, I love your dog analogy. Like, hey, if you want a dog, there's things that come with the dog. They might not all be awesome, but on the whole, is your life not better from having a dog? If the answer is no, don't get a dog. If the answer is yes, get a dog, enjoy the really good stuff, be prepared for the stuff that you might not like so much. That's how it works, right?
Yeah. I mean, so in the Gottman work, you and I have talked about on our podcast, which did not release yet. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah.
But we talked a lot about the Gottman work, the Gottman Institute, Doctors John and Julie Gottman. And one of the things that they talk about, well, a lot of the things they talk about, is this idea of turning toward one another, remembering why you fell in love, and navigating around the perpetual problems. And get this, most of our problems in relationships are perpetual, which blew me away. And I mean perpetual, like never solved. And so if you look at your own relationship, I'll bet you can find a few perpetual problems, because that's the nature of relationships. So if we go into relationships thinking we're not going to have any problems, or that we're going to have all of our problems will just be solved because we're so fabulous, we're missing out on one of the realities of relationships, which is, on average, almost 70% of the problems that we face are ongoing and may never get solved. And that's why it's crucial to be able to figure out how to live with the problem and compromise, make temporary, partial, or sometimes permanent compromise toward the perpetual problems. But here's the other thing. You're going to get that with anyone you marry or anyone you're in a relationship with. If you don't like the set of perpetual problems you have in your marriage, go and find someone else, but be prepared to have a whole different set of perpetual problems.
Well, I think that's exactly right. And I love that one of the reasons I really enjoy our guests is because they bring experiences and knowledge that I don't have. And look, it's not a high hurdle to get over to be smarter than me. Let me just cop to that right up front. However, I love that you're citing research and information to back up what you're talking about. I would ask, what do you consider a problem? Like, at what threshold is something a problem, or maybe even taking it a step further, an insurmountable problem, right? And the challenge there is, like, a lot of times our biggest strengths are actually also our biggest weaknesses. I'll use myself as an example because it's easy. So, not shocking, I'm pretty aggressive. Like, I think that comes across when I talk. I project loudly. I take up a lot of space. I'm that way. I don't think about it. I just do that. That's how I am, both by nature, and then I've learned that it's worked well for me in life. So it's been nurtured as well. That can be really useful in a lot of instances. Like, we don't wait a lot. Nobody fucks with my wife. Like, nobody fucks with my wife. She does not have problems when we're out in public. We were in a hockey game one time, and this guy was yelling at my kid, and whatever, I don't care. He's a guy, he's yelling. And so my wife yelled back at him, and he stood up and he looked at my wife, and he saw me standing behind my wife, and I just shook my head no, and he sat right back down and didn't say a word. So there's advantages to, like, I always say, our relationships like Beauty and the Beast, and I think I'm not Beauty. So
You're so itty.
Yeah, exactly right. I know my role. I'm very comfortable with my role. However, that's not fun to be around all the time, right? It's not. There are times where that surliness and that abrasiveness can wear on you. But at what point does it become a problem? Like with my wife, she'll just say, "Hey, quit being a jerk," right? And like I've learned over the years, she's right. I can be a real jerk. I got to back that off because I want her to stick around. But I see people that go like over the top on the dumbest shit. Like, I see both men and women saying, "Here's my requirements in a relationship." I'm like, well, you're going to be fucking single for the rest of your life. Nobody's going to meet all those requirements. No man, if you're a woman, or no woman, if you're a man. What are you doing? Like, how do you think about that? Like, how do you set those thresholds for success in a relationship?
Well, partly I think that you have to know what your own core values are. I think you have to know what your absolute non-negotiables are, what your deal breakers are, and everything else needs to be flexible and negotiable. And if you're unclear on what your deal breakers are, you end up getting, paired up with people that are not a good fit for you because you don't know who you are or what you want. And so, like, once you get that part figured out, and that's what I took 3 years doing, honestly, not that alone, but other things too, growth and whatnot after my divorce, and figuring out how I was part of the problem. After my divorce in 2020, I spent 3 years traveling by myself, and that was a huge growing period for me. And I was intentionally not dating. It was intentionally completely celibate, had no interest in anything man-wise at all. And I wasn't being a man hater by any stretch. I love men. I just knew that I needed to focus on myself and how do I show up as a person who's not going to repeat the mistakes of my past. And I knew that I did not want to get into a relationship. First of all, until I was ready. And also notice I didn't say until I was perfect or until I was like fully healed or whatever, because you can't wait until you're perfect or fully healed to get in a relationship. And here's why. Because the fully healing only happens in the container of a relationship. Ta-da! So you can't play tennis by yourself. You can play against the wall. You can learn some stuff. You can get some fundamentals under your belt. But you never are going to fully play tennis until there's someone across the net from you. And it is exactly the same in relationship. We can heal to a certain point. We can get clarity. We can all the things. Fabulous. But it's the relationship is the laboratory, is the testing ground where you then go the rest of the way, where you actually do the work, the healing. And so as I was on this 3-year journey, what I knew was I was getting super clear on some stuff. And one of the things I was very clear on was, if this relationship is not exceptional or doesn't show the signs of becoming exceptional and being with a person who is willing to do the work, I'm out. Like, I'm not even entertaining it. That's the first thing. And then I got clear on for my own self, what are my deal breakers? What are my must-haves and what are my must-not-haves? That is the very first place to start. If you're out there single, or if you're in a relationship and you're already married or you're getting married, you have got to sit down with your significant other and talk about your core values and see where they overlap. Because the more areas that your core values and beliefs and just the way that you live, the wants that you have in your life and the things that are important to you overlap, the fewer perpetual problems you're likely to have. So to your point, how do you know what's a problem? Well, if it's a problem, there are people who are politically very opposite for whom that is not a problem.
Yep.
Because that's the unique culture of their marriage, right? But there are other people for whom marrying someone who is their political opposite would be out of the question. So you get to say what's a problem, but there are some common ones, like if you're a super messy person and your spouse is really neat, that could be a perpetual problem that you're always going to have to be in the process of working on, right? Or if one person is a spendthrift and one person is a miser, right? Where one person is really spending and one person is really, that's probably a perpetual problem, because that is a very deeply held core belief or value, right? Things like different spiritual practices, that could be a perpetual problem, or it might not be at all. So each relationship faces their own array of perpetual versus solvable problems. And it's important to be able to discern that, which ones are perpetual and which ones are solvable. And the Gottmans say, I think it's, I want to say it's number 5 of the 7 principles for making marriage work, is solve your solvable problems. Like, address them, solve them, don't shy away from them. Because shying away from any kind of conflict is what creates this undercurrent of resentment, and it corrodes the friendship. And when the friendship is corroded, everything else falls apart.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, when you started off, I call it the fuck yes test. Like, if you ask yourself, do I want to be in this relationship? If the answer is not fuck yes, it's almost always no. Like, the answer should be no. Like, I feel like if you don't feel that strongly about someone, there's probably something there underneath the surface that you're not getting. Now, I say that, but I hear like people that will leave this list of weird requirements, like, he's got to be this tall, or he's got to make this much money, or blah, 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 blah. Or she's got to look this way, or she's got to act this way. And I'm trying to be as gender neutral as I can here, because I see this pretty equally from both genders. And like, I don't get it. So like when my wife and I met, we were supposed to be a fling. I had just been dumped by a girl I'd been dating for 3 years, 2 days before I met my wife. And so she called me up and dumped me long distance. She was right. Our relationship was over. She's a great gal. I have nothing against her. She was 100% correct to end our relationship. It was over. She called it. I was heartbroken. I met my wife 2 days later. And so I was still going back and forth. I was still playing baseball at the time, and it was in the off season, and my season was going to start in about 3 months. And I said, hey, I'm not going to be here in 3 months. I'm not looking to get tied into another long-term relationship. And she said, I don't know who you think you are, but like, I just graduated high school. I'm 2 years older than my wife. So it was between my sophomore and junior years of school. And she had just graduated high school. And she's like, I'm not looking for anything serious. We could have some fun this summer and see what happens. And a month in, we both knew, we knew immediately that this was it. And so like that, if it wasn't that, I wasn't interested. Like I never once talked about marrying the girl I dated for 3 years before. We never talked about marriage. Never, not once. She didn't either, by the way. She's a smart gal. She knew like we weren't the two people that were supposed to be with each other. We were with each other right now, but it wasn't the one, And so I think about it that way. If you can't answer that question emphatically, I think you got to take a hard look at it. But I also think you've got to figure out what truly is core and what just like is, kind of a tertiary annoyance. Like, I don't know. There's certain things that like, I was fortunate. So I was, I was athletic, and I've always been kind of quick on my feet and able to hold conversations. And so I was good at things that carried a high social currency for men back in the 80s and 90s, right? So I had a lot of choices. And so I knew I had a lot of choices and I didn't have to settle. So I didn't. I married exactly the person I wanted to marry. My wife was the same way. She was very attractive. She's very intelligent, very driven, and she didn't have to settle either. So she didn't. She married exactly who she wanted to. Funny story on that, by the way. We were married for, 20 years. And she said in front of a group of people, I've never been attracted to good looking guys, while she was standing next to me in front of this group of people. But I know my wife so well. What she meant was, I've never been attracted to pretty boys, and I'm certainly not a pretty boy. I've got rugged good looks, which means he's not that ugly. That's what rugged good looks actually translate to, guys. You're not that ugly. Like, you could make it work if you had to. So, but she knew what was important to her. Like, she liked security. She liked confidence. She liked someone that signaled that they would provide a good life that she could participate in helping grow. And I say that, because my wife hasn't worked outside the home, but she's equally responsible for our success, because it never would have happened without the environment she created to allow it to happen. And I've always appreciated all of the things she is capable of and good at doing that I suck at. And my life would suck without her in it. Like, I would be super rich because I don't spend money. I'd probably do what you did, live in a van and have a really good set of golf clubs and play golf everywhere, and be way less happy than I am now, because my wife adds so much to my life, because she does things and is good at things I'm fucking terrible at, and vice versa. But she's always appreciated and respected those things out of me. I just don't understand why it's so hard for people to kind of make those things makes sense now. It just seems like that gap is widening. And maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know.
I don't know either, because I mean, if you're old, I'm old. I'm older than you, so for sure I'm old, but I don't know the answer to that. I think it may be this illusion that we have unlimited time. It may be the delay of, not the delay, but the extension of adolescence, where people forget that when they're a certain age, they are no longer a kid. And people think, oh, I have 30 more years to find, whatever I want in a human being. You might, but if you want a family, you probably don't.
Yeah, right.
There's also this idea of abundance. There are, dating apps are like vending machines for humans. It's just like, whoop, 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 boop, boop, boop. I mean, it takes all the work out of meeting people, first of all. And by the way, this is where men who have social skills really excel in the real world and on dating apps.
Yeah.
You can tell when you're on a dating app if the man that you're chatting with has any real world social skills by the way he communicates, generally. And so if you're a man who is confident and who can carry a conversation and who is witty and who can, be funny and be interested as well as interesting and be curious, and all these things that we used to take for granted, we called it communication, but now they're special skills apparently. You have a tremendous advantage with a woman. And here's the other piece. I want to really, because I don't know how many men versus women listen to your show, watch your show, but I'm just going to say that men have, okay, that was a broad generalization. Let me stop.
That's all right. We can look, people need to understand that generalizations are true, because we're talking about the big part of the bell curve. There's always exceptions. There's always exceptions to generalization. So please continue with your generalization.
Please continue with your sweeping broad brush generalization. Some men are sabotaging themselves, and here's why. Because they have this bullshit belief that if they don't, that women only want the top 0.5% of men in terms of looks and money and success and all the things. I'm telling you, that is not true. And you can sit at the other side of your computer and you can bang your fist on the desk and say, it is true. They all want whatever. What's the thing? Six packs, 6 figures, and 6 feet tall or something? Some bullshit. Yeah. Listen, if you're a man watching and you've convinced yourself of that, you have taken yourself out of the race, my friend. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because if a woman is going to reject you because you're not 6 feet tall, then is that the woman you really want anyway?
Exactly.
First of all. Secondly, women value exactly what you said, Joe. Somebody who makes them feel safe, somebody who makes them laugh, somebody who challenges them intellectually, right? We value those things. Now, is there a sector of women who is more concerned about how much money you make and how tall you are and whatever? Yes, there is. Of course there is. Just like there's a sector of men who only want to date women who are X number of years old and weigh X number of pounds. Leonardo DiCaprio, right? Right? Like they're certainly, nobody's saying that's not true, but it's not the majority.
Right.
Because if we're the majority, you would walk around in a world full of single people and nobody was married happily.
And there'd be about 4 billion less people here than there are now, by the way.
Exactly. And I'll tell you what, I am tall men have never, it's not a thing for me. I don't get it. Whatever. It's not but what I did know when I was in the pool was I was like, I'm not going to let something like that potentially eliminate like my future husband from the pool of candidates. He can't help how tall he is. That's not something he did. Now, he can help how clean he is. He can help how he carries himself. He can help his confidence. He can impact all sorts of things, the way he takes care of his body, if he works out, all those things that are within his control. I am free to say yes, no, yes, no. Something like if he's not tall with, blue eyes and black hair, then he's not I am unnecessarily restricting my own candidate pool then, and I deserve whatever hardship that comes with that.
Yeah, so I totally agree with everything you said. I'll give men one piece of unsolicited advice, and I've literally never been on a dating app. The last date I went on is with my now wife, and the first Bush was president. That's how long it's been since I've been on a date. So, but I haven't forgotten how it works. And by the way, I nailed down an awesome chick, and I've got her to stick around for 30 plus years. So I know what I'm talking about. Stop sending pictures of your fucking junk to women. Stop doing it. Nobody wants those pictures. I don't care if they say they want those pictures. They're actually joshing you. They don't want those. Quit doing it. On the communication piece, I think that's one of the problems we have now is it's so easy to go directly to another person. So let's just assume for a second that you and I were back in our teenage years and I wanted to call your house and ask you to go to the movies on a date. I had to make sure that your phone wasn't busy, because it was not uncommon back in the day to call and get the beep, beep. You just had to call back. If that line was tied up, try again, sucker, because someone else is on the line. Didn't matter who it was. So you would actually make the arrangements ahead of time. So you had to go to the girl and say, hey, I'm going to call you at 6:00 tonight. That way she could make sure no one was on the phone at her house at 6:00. And then you had to be ready for anyone to answer the phone. It could be her dad. It could be her mom. You don't know if her Uncle Steve or crazy Uncle Steve was over at the house and he would answer the phone. Now, when we get a call from someone we don't know, like it goes straight to voicemail, right? It's like picking up a hitchhiker, answering a phone call from someone you don't know. Like, God, no, I'm not doing that. But it used to be really exciting to get a phone call. So everybody always answered the phone. And so I had to be prepared to talk to Mr. Ricci and say, hey, Mr. Ricci, this is Joe Canfield. I was calling to talk to Monica. And then I had to get past the gatekeeper because he wasn't just going to let me talk to his daughter. I can guarantee you that. And so I had to at least pass that test that I'm not a scumbag and I'm worthy of speaking to his daughter. So you had to have the social skills to pass whatever gatekeeper answered the phone. Now you send an eggplant emoji or a picture of your junk and say you want to smash. You can't even spell the word you out. You put the letter U. Like, stop communicating like you're a fucking moron. And that would go a long way to getting girls to be attracted to you. Take it from me.
It would be. And that was one of the things that attracted me to my man when I first met him. And we met on a dating app. And the first thing that the only thing you see is the first profile picture. And when I saw his face, I thought, oh, he's a beautiful smile and really friendly eyes. And I was like, I'm going to swipe on this. But I was so new. He was the first person I ever saw on a dating app. He's the first person who swiped on me. And I was so nervous. I was like, oh my God, which way do I swipe? I don't want to swipe the wrong way. So I had to Google which way do you swipe to make sure that you don't swipe the wrong way. So I swiped and we just started chatting in the app. And this was my very first indicator that, oh, wow, I like this person. He was funny. It just flowed easily. He was able to ask questions. It was just in this level of engagement that I could tell there was a brain behind that lovely smile and someone that I was just curious about getting to know. So if you're not able to be engaging right off the bat, like, good luck. And this is men or women, right? I'm not here to school anybody in particular. Yeah. I'm just saying, as a human being, if you're out in the world, whether you have dating apps or not, if you're not able to make eye contact, say hello, just have casual conversation, you're already at a disadvantage for creating new connections, whether it's romantic or business or otherwise.
Yeah. And look, this could be controversial, but I don't give a fuck. So I'm going to say it anyways. I am really against kind of this blurring of what I call traditional gender roles. And before people freak out, let me explain what I mean by traditional gender roles. I don't mean the strong, silent dad that's secretly an alcoholic and beating his family. It's the mom in high heels baking bread in the kitchen. Not at all what I'm talking about. However, when we go back to speaking in generalizations, if you look at the big part of the bell curve, men in general like to be providers. They like to be protectors. They like to find a group of people and provide for them, starting with their wife and then the family that they build together. And women generally like to be nurturers. They like to be support. They like to be emotional kind of insurance for their husband and or their spouse and make them feel better. I say men like to be admired and women like to be adored. And this, what I see as a blurring of these gender roles, I think causes a lot of the problems because it confuses people. It's led to this group of kind of super unmasculine boys and super confused but aggressive women. And I think that's a big part of the problem. And look, you can find exceptions to the rule. Are there men that are super sensitive and emotionally intelligent and they're awesome at it and that's how they are? Of course they exist. Are there women that are super aggressive and cut out for the dog eat dog world? Of course there are. And that's awesome for them. But in general, that's not true. And we keep trying to convince men and women that men need to be more like women and women need to be more like men. I think it's the opposite. I think everyone would be happier and get along much better if they embraced who they really were and what they really wanted. But that's me speaking as a guy that's been married to my wife for however many years. I get it. I'm a dinosaur. I would love to hear your perspective on what I just said, Monica.
Well, I think there's validity to what you said. I do think that when we feel pressured to mask what our natural selves are for whatever reason, whether it's through familial conditioning, whether it's through social conditioning, whether it's, like you said, masculinity has taken a real hit in the last several years, and it's been synonymous with the word toxic. Well, they're two very separate words. Toxic and masculinity do not go together naturally. You can put them together and you can push that narrative if you want, but masculinity by itself is not a toxic thing. It is exactly what you said. It is a strong presence that provides and protects for a family unit. And then the feminine thing as well, it's naturally in women. That's one of the ways that we're different. We're built differently. And if we weren't, there would be no reason to have two genders.
What do you do with all this common sense? Knock it off with all this common sense.
I don't know. It's crazy. It gets heavy sometimes. That's why I have such a big head. But when we are in a societal construct that keeps telling us that our natural state is wrong, that if you're a girl, you should be more independent. You should want to be more like a man. And if you're a man, you shouldn't want to be like a man. You should want to be more sensitive. You should be more emotional. And I'm not saying that any of those are bad inherently, but when we lean away from our natural tendencies biologically and we overcompensate the other way, we get out of alignment. And so it's important for each person to figure out where their line is, where they're at on the spectrum, right? Of masculine energy, feminine energy, and we all move between them as well, right? No one's 100% or 100% because we can go into and out of those things. Masculine energy gives, feminine energy receives, but also feminine energy nurtures, which is also giving, and masculine energy can receive that nurturing. So, and there are people who go, I think this masculine and feminine energy thing is bullshit. Okay, well that's fine. I don't. But this is where discussion comes from. And the other piece too that shows up for me is that personally, what I recognized in my later years is that I was squashing my feminine energy, and a lot of women do this, out of necessity, or what I believed was necessity, to protect myself, to never be dependent on a man, right? I was kind of hiding that feminine side of myself because it felt way too vulnerable to be soft. And this has all been amazing learning for me. I just thought that's how I was. I just thought, I was not as feminine as what is possible for me to be. But in the safety of a good relationship, that femininity sort of blooms. in surprising ways, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. Oh, I'm curious why people think it's bad to depend on someone. So, like, have you ever heard someone say he's a strong, independent man? I've literally never heard that statement, but I hear strong, independent woman all the
Right.
time. Like, I depend on my wife for a lot of, like, I would be a fucking terrible person if I hadn't met my wife 30 years ago. I'd be like
I don't know
Attila
about
the
that.
Hun. We were watching a documentary the other night. They were talking about Cornelius Vanderbilt. And so Cornelius Vanderbilt, for people that don't know, he started off in shipping. He literally bought a boat and was ferrying stuff from New York to Staten Island. That's how he got to start in business, and eventually parlayed that into this big boating empire, and then converted it all to railroads, which is what made him
Railroads.
rich, rich, rich. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Cornelius Vanderbilt like used to fist fight people for money in the streets of New York City. He didn't care what he wore. He swore at people. Like, he was just an ornery son of a bitch. And I turned and looked at my wife and I said, I might have been Cornelius Vanderbilt in another life. She goes, I was thinking the same thing.
But she loves you.
But she's made me such a better person because she, I call it Beauty and the Beast, and I'm really not joking when I say it. She's one of the few people in the world that can say, hey, you need to calm down a little bit and think this through because you're not doing a good job of it right now. And I'll listen to her. So, like, my life is infinitely better because she's a woman, because she doesn't think the way that I do, because she doesn't try to be what I am. She is just herself. And I get so much value out of having that in my life. And she gets so much value out of having my approach and energy and thought process in her life. I just don't understand why it's so hard for people to put that together these days. But
I don't know. I mean, we're designed to complement each other.
yeah, that's the way I think about it too. And I feel like part of it might be the feminist movement, which was very necessary. So let me just say that up front. It was absolutely necessary. And by the way, the wrong person on this podcast or this live stream is talking about this right now, because I'm sure Monica can tell you much more directly why it was necessary. Things were out of whack and there was a lot of shit that was just wrong. But like, I think that's where the push for equality comes from. And I don't agree with equality. The problem I think people have with that statement is they assume that you elevate one or the other gender because you say they're not equal. I don't think one is more or less important, but I don't think they're equal. I think they're very different. And I think that's part of the problem is we keep trying to make them equal, and it's the math ain't ever going to math. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a rabbit hole. I mean, we could certainly go down that rabbit hole. And I'm not well versed enough on the subject, honestly.
Yeah.
So here's what I will say. I will say that if we take this idea of independence, for example, and we lay over it the golden mean, the virtuous mean. And that is this idea that Aristotle puts forth, that even a virtue becomes a vice when it's to its extreme or its deficit, right? So, like anything else, there's always this middle ground that this really, really works. So within relationships, you can be two independent people, but if you're too independent, that's disconnection. If you're not independent enough, that's codependent, that's neediness, that's unhealthy too, right? So you can see how the two extremes are not good. And so the middle is this interdependence where you do rely on one another. You recognize that you each have strengths that shore up the other's weaknesses. You recognize that you have differences and you recognize your commonalities. And each relationship is its own unique ecosystem, if you will, or culture, right? And so the challenge is to remember that you are collaborating. You're not competing. And it gets confusing sometimes because our nature as humans is to be self-interested. Like, it's our very nature to be self-interested. And in relationship, if we're not collaborative, we can create disconnection. So it kind of almost goes against our human nature of taking care of ourselves first. And it requires us to find the middle ground where I get to take care of me and you at the same time, and we both win from it.
Yeah, it's I argue that you never actually win an argument with your spouse, and I don't know why you would try to win an argument, because let's just assume for a second that you walk away thinking, I really proved my point, and she had to agree with me. Okay, so now you've created friction and you've made your spouse feel like shit. So did you win? Did you really win? Was that a win? I don't think it was. I always try to encourage people to think about, hey, it's not you against your spouse. It's you and your spouse against whatever the issue is you're trying to solve for. And you got to find a common ground that works for both. And I say spouse, but it doesn't matter what your marital status is, whatever the person you're in a relationship with. If you're not thinking about it like, hey, it's the two of us against this issue instead of me against them, I think you got some problems. I think you got to think about it another way.
It's really easy to get competitive in your marriage, though. It's super easy. And it's a really important awareness to have is especially if you're in conflict, in the midst of a disagreement, even a small disagreement. You know, people talk about conflict in marriages or in relationships, and I don't know, it feels like it has to be like a big blow up, like a fight, but it can just be the tiniest of disagreements. But when you enter into the area where you are not in agreement or in alignment on something, it's important to remember that winning is not the goal, because winning is always losing. That the goal is to learn more and to come to an agreement. And that's it. And you have to ask yourself and be really honest with yourself and say, am I super attached to being right in this instance? And the answer is often yes. Because again, welcome to humanity, Joe. We all like to be right. Right? It's not bad to want to be right.
Right.
It's part of our nature. But we get to say, oh, I think I'm really attached to being right now, and this is not helpful for my marriage. Which doesn't mean you roll over every time. It doesn't mean any of that. And I know people are going to be like talking, you know, whatever they're going to say about, you know, just giving somebody their way every time, appeasing every time. It's not what it's about at all. It's about recognizing where your behaviors are not helpful to move things forward in terms of understanding who your spouse is, what is important to them, and really asking yourself, do I care enough about this relationship and this person to care what's important to them? Or do I just care about them not being difficult? Do I just value this relationship because it's easy for me and I don't have to work?
Yeah. It's so you talked about being right. I love that, because it's a question that I try to teach people a lot. It's a question I ask myself a lot, and I learned it from playing sports. And so the question is, do you want to be right or do you want to be successful? Because sometimes you don't get to be both, and you got to make a choice. And I would argue that unless it's like a moral or ethical issue, it's almost always better to be successful than it is to be right. But I agree with you completely. All of us, myself included, so I'm not, you know, sitting in the ivory tower casting stuff down into the gallery down there. I do this too. Like, I'm guilty of it just like everyone else is. But success almost always leads you to a better place. Being right can lead you to eating dinner by yourself a lot. You know, that's not a good place to be, especially in a relationship. And sometimes you get to be both. That's awesome when you get to both be right and successful, but it's not as often as you would think it is. And I argue that the success is more important than the right. Now, like for my wife and I, we're lucky. Maybe we're lucky. Maybe we built it this way. I don't know, whatever. It works for us. The things that are really, really important to her carry less importance for me. So I have no problem with those things going exactly the way she wants them to, because there's no friction there. Yeah. Vice versa. The things that are really, really important to me don't carry that same importance with my wife. And so she doesn't have as much desire to have them go her way. So she can acquiesce to what's important to me in those situations. And I don't know if we got lucky. I don't know if we just got that way from communicating with each other, but I think there's a respect there. And the respect is what people ask me, you know, I'm at the point now where I've been married long enough that people are like, oh shit, You must have figured something out. What's your secret? There's no secret, by the way. There's no hack. There's no secret. It's being respectful and caring about your partner every day. That's it. That's the secret. But the respect part is super, super important. And that's where like a lot of the male versus female bullshit that I see. You ever notice how it's always single people that are talking of, like, single women that are talking about how shitty men are, and single men talking about how shitty women are? You ever noticed? I've noticed that. It's really a married person throwing that shit out there.
It's true. And every time you talk about something, and especially when you talk about it with emotion, you amplify that. You make it more true for yourself. So if I go around walking around and complaining to my girlfriends over happy hour about how all men are this and all men are that, and men, and men, then I'm creating that. I'm making a space in my life to draw that in and make that a reality. And that was another thing that I was super conscious about not doing during my sabbatical, if you will, was to, I was very conscious of my language. I was very conscious of my thoughts around relationships. And I was really careful to look for relationships that looked like what I wanted and celebrate them in my mind. And how that is different is that sometimes folks will look at relationships and feel envious or jealous of that. And I knew that if I did that, if I put that negative energy toward that, I would repel that. And so every time I would see somebody that was in a wonderful relationship, I would amplify it in some way, either just to myself and say, good for them. That's awesome. I'm happy for you. Or I would tell them, you guys are so, you inspire me. Like, your relationship inspires me. Because if it's out there in the world, it's available, which means it's available to me. And poof, I have it. Now I have it. And it's work. It is work. But here's what I'll tell you what. I would rather do the work of growing together, learning together, intentionally building a friendship. The Gottmans call it building your sound relationship house, constructing the walls, making it solid. I would rather do that work, which can be vulnerable and a little bit scary and risky, than the work of living in either silence or conflict or complacency for the next 30 years. I would, if I'm going to choose my version of work, I'll take the work I'm doing now rather than the other one.
Yeah, it's there's all sorts of studies on palliative care, and when people know that their time on the earth is about to come to an end, they always, and I rarely make global statements, but I'll make this one because it's true. They always say the same things, and they don't say the same things. No one ever says, I wish I'd spent more time at work. I wish I'd made a little more money. I wish I had a couple more things. I wish my house was bigger. I wish the car I drive was nicer. What they do say is, I wish I'd had the courage to live the life I wanted to live and not the life other people thought I wanted or I should live. I wish I had taken the chance that I was too scared to take. I wish I spent more time with the people that I care about. I wish I had asked that girl or guy out or taken the shot when I had the shot. Like, it's always about relationships. And so that's why it's such an important issue to me is we've kind of, and look, we kind of hosed a generation, especially with all the stuff we did around COVID, where you took them out of school and you stunted their social development. And how many kids did we send home that weren't eating food because they only ate at school? And how many of them got sent home to a house where they were getting smacked around or were in some shitty environment because there was substance abuse or whatever other problems there were? We didn't help the cause, is all I'm saying, when we did all the stupid shit that we did during COVID. But we've kind of set this generation, a couple generations up for real problems. And I think we have a responsibility to try to help them understand, hey, you got to look at this a little different than the way you're looking at it. And you're not going to be truly fulfilled until you figure out how to share your life with somebody else that shares your values. I think that's why it resonates with me. That's why it's so important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, getting back to where we started talking, is that when you're clear on what your core values are, it becomes really obvious to you whether or not a person is a good fit for you. And when they're not a good fit for you, how you approach that is really important. Because if you make somebody not being a good fit for you about how, if you catastrophize it and you make it, you make up a story about it, about either them or about you or about the state of relationships, you're not doing yourself any favors, right? And I used this, I was in a Facebook group a while ago. I've been off social media for 6 months now, by the way, like off. It's been so glorious.
I was going to say, how do you like it?
I love it.
Yeah.
But I made a post in this Facebook group a while back, and it was a women's group and largely single women. And I said, here's the thing. When you approach relationships and dating with attachments, here's what it looks like. It looks like you go into the store, going to the produce department, picking up an apple, seeing that it has bruises and it has some cuts and the stem's a little wonky. And instead of putting that apple down and going to pick up another apple, you go, I can fix this apple. I can totally fix this one. This is the best apple in the whole wide world. It just doesn't know it yet. When you bring that energy to it, you're exhausting yourself. You're trying to change a person. You're not going to get anywhere. You just put the apple down and let that somebody who wants that apple have it, and you go get a different one. You don't get yourself all worked up over it. You just put it down and get a different one. And so this energy that we bring to making generalizations and villainizing the other gender and all that stuff could be so much put to better use by looking at ourselves and saying, well, what do I want? And who do I want to be? What kind of person am I? And what does that align with more naturally? Instead of trying to find a person because you have a scarcity mindset, like, well, I already got this one and he's the only one left on earth, or she's the only one left on earth, so I'm just going to tough it out with this one. You don't have to tough it out with that one. You get to decide, which is not to say throw them all away cavalierly if they're not perfect, right? But man, when your core values don't align, that's a big opportunity to say, this is probably not the apple you want. You got to look at your bigger things. What things can you live with and what things can you not live with? Because let me tell you what, the man that I love and am building a life with, he loves duvet covers and duvets, and I hate them. I even had that on my dating profile. I was like, you must hate duvet covers. But no, here we are. He loves them.
I love the randomness of that thing. That is awesome.
It's so true, though. But right, like, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to be willing to flex around a lot of stuff if the things that are important to me in my relationship are there. And can we grow together? That's the other thing. Can we grow together? Are we willing? Are we both interested in growing? Because I can tell you one thing, you can't change your relationship all by yourself. You can start it. You can get the wheels rolling by yourself. And sometimes you have to. It doesn't matter who it is. Somebody has to go first to change your relationship. But if that other person does not get on board, I mean, it's like trying to seesaw by yourself. That ain't no fun. You can't do it. You can't.
Totally. The other, so two things pop to mind on that topic. One of them is, and I always use Taylor Swift as an example just because it's an easy example. I don't know Taylor Swift. I got nothing against her. She's supremely talented, et cetera, et cetera. With that said, she kept writing songs about these shitty relationships that she was in. What was the one thing all those relationships had in common? It was fucking Taylor Swift. That was the thing that they had in common. And so sometimes you got to look at yourself and say, hey, am I part of the problem here? Right. Well, so like I talked earlier about my aggressiveness and my surliness and blah, 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 all the things that I'm very comfortable doing and very capable of doing. You got to look at yourself and say, hey, is that behavior also a source of problems if I don't deal with it, if I don't handle it in a different way? And all of us have those things to deal with for sure. And then unsolicited advice here for women, but you can take your pen and paper and write this down because I'm right about this. Men are never going to change. We're morons. We're morons when you meet us. Like, that. We are very upfront about it. We don't try to hide it. Even if we do try to hide it, we're not good at it. You can see right through it. Don't expect us to all of a sudden become mature and intelligent and a different person, because it ain't happening. If it weren't for you, we'd have one light bulb and we would unscrew it in the room we're in and then go screw it into the next room when we walked over there, because we're morons. So keep that in mind when you're dealing with us. Don't expect a whole bunch from us, because it ain't coming. That's free advice that I know is right.
That's so funny. Well, I mean, I would never say that men are morons, but I would say that each gender believes the other gender thinks things are important that are not. I would say that's true. I think women largely think that men care more about the way we look than men actually care about how we look.
100% true, by the way. Yes, that's right.
I think, let me think what I just said. When we think, the lie we tell ourselves is, I have to look like X in order to be enough for a man. What do you think the lie is that men tell themselves?
About women?
That women think is important. What do you all think that we think is important? Like I said earlier, a lot of men believe if I'm not 6 feet tall and making 6 figures and with a 6-pack abs, that I have no shot. That's all bullshit. That's a lie that you all are telling yourself. Is there anything else that you can think of that you think men over index on and that we don't really care about?
So yeah, I think that men think that the way, I'm trying to choose this carefully because it's not the same, but I think a lot of men are really, really insecure. And they think that because they're insecure, that it's going to project that way to a woman. So that's where you see a lot of this false bravado and the bragging and the flashy cars and the big trucks and all this signaling that, look, I'm a real man. I can provide. I can do this. I can do that. And it's the exact opposite. That it's so funny because I try to tell people a lot. If you really want something, the best way to get it is not to focus on it at all and just follow process that's going to lead you there. If you fall in love with the process and keep doing the same things over and over again, it'll lead you to where you want to go. And what I mean by that is just be who you are. If you are who you are and you put yourself in situations where other people can see that behavior over and over again, you'll attract the right people to be in your circle, including women, by the way. Like, let's just say, for example, you really love Star Trek, and I'm just picking something at random, but like you're a total Star Trek freak. Just be a Star Trek freak. That's okay, because you know what? There's chicks that are Star Trek freaks too, and they would love to be with a guy that's a Star Trek freak. It doesn't matter if you're 6 feet tall. It doesn't matter if you have a 6-pack. It doesn't matter all the other bullshit that you've heard. And by the way, most of that is just projection from women. And like you said, I have zero interest in being around those women. I'll tell you, so I don't drink. I've never been drunk in my life. I've never touched an illegal drug in my life. That's not anything more than statement of fact. It's not bragging. It's just true. But, I got invited to everything because I could drive people around. Like there was always sober Joe and responsible Joe to cart people to the bars and the parties. I can't tell you how many times I went to the door at a party when the police showed up. Like, officers, I got it. He's going to get off the roof. She's going to put her clothes back on. We're going to turn the music down. We're okay. I'm sober. I can make your night a lot easier. And it always worked. We never got in any problems. But we were at a bar one time, and I was out with guys I played baseball with, and there was this absolutely breathtaking woman she was gorgeous physically, and she was a total bitch. And so like all these guys in my group kept taking a run at her. Can I buy you a drink? You want to dance? Blah, blah, blah. She looked at her nose, and I'm like, you guys are going about this the wrong way. I'm like, watch, this is how you handle a woman like this. And I went up and I said, hey, can I buy you a drink? And like, I was much less physically attractive than a lot of the guys that had taken a run already. And she gave me that no. And I said, so blowjob, totally out of the question. And she was like, how dare you? I'm like, fuck you, lady. You don't have any right to treat all these people this way. You're not as good looking as you think you are. And I turned around and walked away. I was like, if you're going to treat people shitty, I'll treat you shitty so you can see how it feels. And like my friends were laughing and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, don't waste time with people like that, man. She doesn't care about you. She's never going to care about you. What are you doing? Wasting your time with someone like that. there's some version of that out there for everyone. Like if they're not interested in you, that's okay. It's not a referendum on you. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just means they're not the right fit for you. Move on. There's like 4.5 billion women and 4.5 billion men. We can figure out finding someone that'll work for all of us, you know?
So I'm putting myself in that scenario, not as the person or anyone involved, but as a looker, as an onlooker. And I have to say, I can see both sides of that. I can see both sides of where everyone was coming from. I can see there's a gorgeous woman. She's maybe by herself. She's at a bar, and that she doesn't want to be bothered, and that she could be rude because of it. I could totally see that and get it. And I also can see that there are guys and they're going to shoot their shot, and I don't fault them for that either.
Right.
And right, like I don't know. I'm just, I had an experience where I was leaving a grocery store and a gentleman was leaving at the same time I was leaving, and we were just chatting, casual conversation. And he asked me, somehow he just in the middle of walking out the grocery store, I don't remember what he said exactly, but he asked me out basically. And I just said, I am in a relationship that is wonderful, but I really respect you shooting your shot right now. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job. Right? Like, so I don't know, this whole thing about, I don't know, it goes back to where I feel like we're both the same, and yet we're different. We're designed different so that we can complement one another. But we're also very much the same in that we all want to be seen, we all want to be acknowledged, we all want to feel like we're valued, we want to feel like we're important, and we don't want people to presume things maybe about us because we're a woman or because we're a man, right? And so that's where this conversation in absolutes can get very dangerous, where women just want X. Women will leave you if X, they find another better man. Okay, that may be what happened to you, sir, but that's not really what happens. Right? Like it's not an absolute. And that's the danger, I think, that we're facing in the age of where anyone can put their thoughts on any platform in 2 seconds, is that you're not forced to really look at what's true. Look at the evidence around you. I grew up with this deeply held belief that you can't count on a man because of things that happened when I was very young. I grew up without a father, and it was sort of a chaotic childhood, and a lot of it formed my beliefs around men, and that they are unreliable and you cannot count on them to stick around, which is patently false, because all I have to do to counter that is look around. But when we have confirmation bias, right? So we look for things that confirm the thing we already believe. So now I realize, well, shoot, that was a belief that I had that made me shift into always being in protection mode, which made me not be my full authentic self, which made me be in relationships that were unfulfilling, all from a belief. So now I get to say, my beliefs just shaped my behavior, which shaped my outcome, shaped my experience of life. How do I do that? Well, I start with reshaping the belief. And the first part about doing that is looking for evidence. I'm standing here sitting in front of you. You've been married for I don't know how many years. You're madly and desperately in love with your wife. You're providing. There's one example right there. I can look around in my friend circle and see lots of good, reliable men, right? So this is a really beautiful opportunity for us to challenge our stories and ask, is that true? Or is that some bullshit I believed because I had to believe it to get through my experience as a child? Or it shaped me.
Yeah, for sure. And look, here's the crazy thing about trust, and it is what it is. The only way you know if you can trust someone is to trust them and see what happens. Like
it's risky, isn't it? Yeah. It's risky. If I trust you and you hurt me, then I'm hurt. But here, this is so good. If I believe, though, that I can survive that hurt, then I have no problem risking, because I know that I'll be all right, even if I get hurt. People get hurt all the time, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. So, anecdotal story that is directly related to this. So, when I went to high school, there was, I don't know, I think she was a year younger than me, but she was really pretty, and there was a bunch of us who were like, "Oh man, this really pretty girl," and none of us knew anything about her, and so I went up and asked her out, and she said, "Well, I can't go out until I'm 16." And then, by the way, she went on a date with someone the next month, so she just didn't want to go on a date with me. But I was the canary in the coal mine that sacrificed themselves to see what the situation was with this girl. But to your point, like rejection never bothered me. That's okay. Like not everyone's going to like me, and so I never took it personally. I don't know. Maybe I should have taken it personally, but I didn't. And so she didn't like me. That's okay. There's other girls that did like me, and I was more than willing to spend time with them. But you got to take chances in life, and this kind of drawing back, and I have to have certain criteria met, and I have to have certain boxes checked. And this is non-gender specific. This is for all humans, right? It's not going to get you very far in life. You've got to be willing to take chances. It's like the old saying, if you want the fruit, you got to go out on the limb to get it. And that's just the way that it works. All I'm saying is the things that matter the most in everyone's life are relationships and experiences. They're not material things. They're not status. They're not titles. They're not all of those other things. And look, you guys don't know Monica's story yet because we haven't released her podcast episode yet, but she's been wildly successful in business in her life. And yet she focuses on talking about largely relationship stuff because she knows how important it is. And she's been successful in that too. But look at where she focuses. She's not a person that she doesn't need anyone to provide for her. And she's not looking for necessarily, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's not what you're after. Like you don't need that. You want someone that makes your life better and makes you enjoy your existence more. I think it's important to focus on that.
I want a playmate. I want a best friend. I want a lover. I want someone that feels like they are mine and I am theirs. And that's what I have. And it's really very glorious. And which is not to say that you can't have a marriage that is fulfilling without every single aspect of all the things all the time, because we go through seasons and evolutions. And listen, people we celebrate people who have been married for 50 years and 60 years. And I think it's great to be able to be married for a long, long time. But the question is not only about longevity, the question is, what has the quality of your marriage been? Because we all know there are people that live 50 years who can't stand each other, but they still stayed married. Right. So is longevity really the most important metric? I would say no. I would say what's the difference between lifespan and health span? You can live to be 100, but if your last 30 years you're infirm, okay. But same with marriages. We could be married 60 years, but if 30 of them were miserable, are you really successful? And that's what I'm focused on in my life and in my work, is helping people to not only have the longevity, but have the verve, the vibrance, the connectedness. The reason that we get married is because it's an elevated experience. Otherwise, we could just be friends.
Totally. Yeah. I totally agree with you on the longevity. If I unchained my wife from the basement and brought her over here, she would agree with you.
Oh my God, she's gonna watch that. No, I know. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, look, Monica, I think that's a great point to end it on here. I really appreciate you joining us on the live stream, and loved our conversation. And for anyone that's still watching, we're releasing Monica's episode, I think next week, if I remember right. But it's coming up because we got a great episode. So all sorts of information out there about Monica on her episode. So keep your eyes open for that. You'll see it on our YouTube channel. You'll see it on our website, and really appreciate it. So, and we're going to keep in touch with Monica. This won't be the last time you see her, but really appreciate you coming on.
Great to have you, or great to be here. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Joe. And I can't wait for the podcast release.
Yep, it's coming. It's coming real soon. All right, guys, thanks for joining us here on the live stream. I really appreciate it. Loved having Monica on. Like I said, her episode is being published shortly, and her life story is super cool. It is a story of kind of reinvention and over and over again figuring out how to move forward and being successful based on where she's at in her life. And it's super interesting. You don't want to miss it, so make sure you check it out. Really appreciate you coming on the live stream. We'll be here every Thursday at 6 p.m. We recently kind of opened it up for guests, and we've got guests already lined up from now through the end of July. Heck, I think we're into August already. So we've got all our live streams booked through August with guests on them. So never know what we're going to talk about. It depends on the guest. It depends on what's going on in the world. It depends on lots of stuff. So all good stuff. You don't want to miss it. Head over to our website as well. You can see all of our episodes to our podcast there. We've got links to all of our social media accounts there. We publish a newsletter every week there. We have a little bit of fun. We joke around a little bit, but also share some current events and share some things that strike our fancy. So you can subscribe to that newsletter on our website. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to our podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. It's helpful for us if you're able to do that. Awesome guests like Monica and all of our other guests. We have episodes that help you learn how to take a different approach to the way you think, the way you approach life, to build a life that you want. It's all good stuff. So make sure you don't miss it, and make sure you catch our live streams every Thursday at 6 p.m. Thanks for joining us. Catch our next episode. We'll see you there.